Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Earlier today, Tropical Storm Jerry, the latest storm to form in the Atlantic, and if all goes according to plan, it'll be the latest storm to make a turn away from the United States, just as we like to see it. Welcome in to the Stream Center for Tracking the Tropics. Got a trio of all-star meteorologists here on the program today to break down everything you need to know as we approach early to mid-October here in the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Joining us, of course, here from WFLA News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida, meteorologist Juliana Mejia, as well as WSNN chief meteorologist Justin Mosley joining us. He's up here today from our neighboring station in Sarasota, and our featured meteorologist today from WIAT CBS 42 in Alabama. That is Dave Nussbaum joining us there in the top right-hand portion of your screen. We're an interactive program. You see the hashtags all around your screen. We want to feature you. Use a hashtag with your comment. We'll answer your question about Tropical Storm Jerry, about the hurricane season, about that lingering X that you see there in the Gulf of Mexico, or near the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to break it all down. But Juliana, first, let's send you over to the wall because I want to know exactly what is the latest with Jerry, because I like this cone that we have here, taking it away from the peninsula and away from the continental United States.
Exactly. Yes. So the good news with Jerry is this has been consistent in the forecast ever since this was an invest, really from the jump. So Tropical Storm Jerry having kind of organized, I want to say quickly, but it organized well this morning and went from invest 95L to now Tropical Storm Jerry. The forecast cone, areas like the northern Leeward Islands, they're going to keep a close eye on this, kind of make a close pass there. Looking less and less like it could be an issue for Puerto Rico, but of course the surf, which we'll take a look at here in a second, and kind of the secondary or exterior impacts will still be something to look out for in that long-term forecast, as well as areas like Bermuda are going to want to keep an eye on the progress of Jerry overall. And later on, eventually, I'll also talk in more detail about this blob here in the southwest Gulf, but that has very low-end odds of developing in the short and long term. It has a pretty small window of time to really do anything in general. So talking in more detail about Jerry here. Here's a look at that satellite imagery from this morning over the last few hours. You can see generally getting that better circulation overall. And here's a look at that track for the National Hurricane Center. 45-mile-per-hour winds moving to the west at about 24 miles per hour. Oh, and it looks like I skipped ahead here. I'm going to go back to play out the actual forecast cone. Forecast is strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane here later this week, heading into about Thursday and making that close pass with portions of the northern Leeward Islands technically in the cone. But of course, something, no matter where these storms exist, that we always try to remind folks is that impacts can and will be felt outside of the forecast cone. So, of course, making this close pass, this entire area will want to keep an eye on the strength and intensity and the forecast regarding Jerry heading into Thursday and Friday of this week. Then, in that longer term, heading into this upcoming weekend, looking to then pass by, if not bring some impacts to Bermuda. So also an area that's been really kind of back-to-back watching a lot of storms throughout the season. So while they're more so fish storms, we've had a lot of fish storms this season. These storms that stay well away from the United States, Bermuda's been getting these close passes, if not direct impacts, kind of left and right throughout the season. Tropical Storm Jerry to show you now the spaghetti model plots to give you an idea of the consistency here overall with that general turn, keeping this way east and well away from the mainland United States. Also wanted to show y'all, because I figured some folks would ask about this kind of here each week. We've been talking here and there about the Google AI model. This is a look at their ensemble plots, their cyclone focus or oriented forecast model. And this is also reflecting more of the same, which is also the good news, something that's been consistent here as well. Again, that's Tropical Storm Jerry, no longer invest 95L. And just to give you an idea, at least with the European model, it doesn't look incredibly impressive, but of course the National Hurricane Center forecasting about a Category 1 hurricane, and then generally looking to unravel the farther north it gets in the Atlantic. Of course, big part of that being the sea surface temperatures that really back off the farther north you go in the Atlantic. Here's a look at those wind gusts, looking to kick up some stronger winds here. Potentially going to feel that in the northern Leeward Islands, as well as then Bermuda will want to keep a close eye on this. But that's all just reiterating the kind of the various potential impacts here. The wave heights, I think, will be the main concern for these areas, where that really could bring some life-threatening surf issues with rip currents heading into the later part of this week. Same goes for Bermuda. Again, the good news is staying well to the east. What you'll notice here on this map as well is that elevated surf here along the eastern seaboard of the United States. We're tracking a strong frontal boundary and an area of low pressure developing along that frontal boundary, which I'll show you here in a moment. That's looking to kick things up a little bit, bring some, of course, rain and storms along the east coast and along the southeast United States, and then along with that, some of that elevated surf as well. Here's a look at the wind shear forecast. Right now looking more or less favorable for that strengthening here, especially in the short term, heading into then the end of this week and this upcoming weekend. Big part of the reason why they're expecting strengthening for Jerry, as well as then those warm sea surface temperatures, which you do then see back off the farther north that we go. So now I wanted to also take a look here. Let's see if we can jump ahead. There we go. A little slow here and there. This is the cold front that I'm talking about. So heading into about Friday, that'll be draped across the southeast, an area of low pressure looking to develop along that, bringing a lot of, really almost the eastern half of the United States here in the Tampa Bay area. We're looking forward to some dry air to trickle in, bringing us a little bit of a taste of fall. But you'll notice that on some forecast models. Don't necessarily be alarmed by that. No, the National Hurricane Center is not pointing to anything here off the southeast coast of the United States, at least for now, because I imagine because it's looking to be attached to these frontal boundaries, likely to be extra tropical if it were to try to be anything at all, this area of low pressure. But one way or another, we're just focused on Jerry, as well as then this blob here in the southwest Gulf. So getting a closer look at this as well, just to ease any concerns, because this is a little closer to home. This is currently over the Yucatan and steadily looking better, a little bit more robust with convection, but it has, again, a very brief window of time as it emerges over the Bay of Campeche to work its way westward. And if it does try to organize it all, which it doesn't really look to do much, it'll roll right into, I should say, southern portions and central portions of Mexico. And as of right now, you can see this is the European model, looking at the very least to bring quite a bit of rain, potentially some gusty winds to those areas. But I think that covers just about all of our bases here, and figured I'd turn it over to y'all and get your thoughts on the season. Maybe bring Dave in here and get your thoughts on, I know you were mentioning the subtropical ridge working in our favor so far this season, hoping we see more of that continue.
Yeah, thank goodness that's been around all season, and it's just far enough to the east, so it's not allowing those storms to really hit the East Coast, which has been great news, and keeping things out of the Gulf as well, too. So like seeing that out there, a little invest down there at the Bay of Campeche. It looks like this one just moving east, so we don't have to worry about that one, too. But yeah, we go back to, what was it, Aaron? Cat 5 out there, and then we have Umberto most recently, all kind of making that same curve with that high just sitting there in the central part of the Atlantic. Like it there, making more fish storms than East Coast problems.
As we're joined here by WIAT Chief Meteorologist Dave Nussbaum, Juliana Mejia, Justin Mosley, JB Buno. I want to let you know that I'm keeping an eye right now on our comment section. We're going to get to your comments here in just a second. You can use our hashtag system, folks, if you want to ask a question here to one of our 3 meteorologists joining us today on Tracking the Tropics. I see Mary, I see Jay, I see Adam on TikTok Live. I see some others here, Oscar, Jesse, Anthony on Facebook Live. We'll get to your comments here in just a moment. Justin, this is look. I'm not a meteorologist, but I am smart enough to detect a pattern occurring here.
Yes.
With all of these storms as we are midway through the alphabet in this season. And this is every time a forecast cone forms, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be the one to beeline it directly for the United States. Yeah. And in fact, it's curving, and that's exactly what we want to see.
That's exactly what we want to see. Like Dave mentioned, that ridge is just far enough to the east. And more importantly, we've had this persistent trough on the eastern seaboard time after time, unusually so in the middle of summertime. And that's been working to deflect these storms off to our east. Now, over the next couple of weeks, we'll be keeping a close eye on the Gulf of Mexico, Western Caribbean Sea. There's an area that we call the Central American Gyre, which can work to kind of spin up activity. But Julian is just pulling up this graphic here. October tropical development. Notice we're highlighting close to home. We kind of start to look away from the main development region as we head deeper into the hurricane season. But it is a little unusual to see a storm developing where it is right now, which is Jerry. But the good news with it, it looks to stay out to sea.
So the odds, let's just bring everybody in here and everybody can kind of hop in here together because, look, everyone's getting the Halloween decorations out. They're decorating their houses. And the last thing that we want is anything in the latter half of October. We never want a hurricane at all. But, there's this myth that once you get past September or even early October that, everybody can calm down.
That's definitely not the case for us, in particular here on the west coast of the state. We've had so many storms historically here in October, and it's simply because the Gulf tends to light up as well as the Western Caribbean Sea, and the currents in the atmosphere tend to favor things moving to the north or north and east. So we have to remain on guard all the way through the end of November, in particular here in Florida.
Let's get to some of the comments that have been coming in. Let's start with Doug. Again, use a hashtag Hey Dave, hashtag Hey GAB, Hey Juliana, Hey Justin, and we can feature your comment on the show just like this. Hashtag Hey Juliana. We'll go back to meteorologist Juliana Mejia. When can we expect impacts here in Bermuda?
Essentially heading into this weekend. And of course, the question of whether or not they're direct impacts, but regardless, secondary or these kind of exterior impacts, especially the elevated surf, dangerous rip currents, and those gusty winds will be an issue this weekend, probably even maybe lingering into about Monday. But also, I have the wind gust forecast that kind of helps visualize that as well. Yeah, Saturday, Sunday, and then and you can even see then the East Coast low pressure system also having this kind of wide swath of an impact too, and those kind of far-reaching gusty winds. So I would say essentially Saturday into maybe Monday, early Monday.
I'm going to bring this up for everybody here. We can talk a little bit about the science behind where hurricanes form at this point in the season. I'll bring in Dave and Justin here as well, because Anthony has a really good question. It says, hey, Juliana, have we seen the end of Africa-based storms? As far as storms, forming off of the, the coast of Africa or really, near the vicinity of Africa and then trekking across the Atlantic and building up all of that strength. Does that have an endpoint, or maybe you guys can explain that for me?
I mean, Justin hit the nail on the head where this is unusual because this is statistically from the National Hurricane Center's, archived data. This is built off of what we tend to see, and it's not from the main development regions, really not stemming from the coast of Africa, like Jerry, like Invest 95L had emerged off of the coast of Africa. So a little bit, late in the season for that, but it's not impossible. At the end of the day, nothing is impossible when it comes to weather, when it comes to tropics.
Yeah, nothing's off the table for sure. But as you can see with that particular map she has up there, we start to look once again towards the Gulf, the Caribbean Sea, and off of the southeastern United States. And then that's exactly what the model data is kind of indicating with that more of an extratropical system associated with a front. But sometimes if it sits there, it can acquire tropical characteristics. So it's certainly something that we have to keep our eyes on. It'll be sitting over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream there. And if it does persist, and according to this model, we'll have to keep a close watch on the Carolina coastline over the next couple of days here.
Dave, what about you and what from your vantage point in Alabama? Because, obviously you guys are a little bit more inland, but you also monitor these developmental zones as well.
Yeah, we do. I mean, this time of year, I always say about October 15th, that kind of cuts us off here. Unfortunately, not for Florida. But we get these fronts coming in, and don't be jealous. We're going to have lows in the lower to middle 50s here.
Wow.
Next couple of days.
What number is this you speak of?
Some true fall-like air, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to this front coming in, the same one that's going to help spawn that low there off the East Coast, which looks like an early season nor'easter, less than snow for those areas. So for those maybe watching up along the Northeast, while not a hurricane, it's going to act like a one almost, with winds potentially gusting 50, 60, 70 miles an hour or so. Once we get these fronts coming in, that really protects a lot of the northern Gulf from really getting the bigger storms. I mean, typically once you get past mid-October, it's more of the eastern seaboard, Caribbean, unfortunately Florida area, kind of getting in the bulk of these storms. They all get deflected off to the east there because of the fronts and this big trough coming in. Hence that map, why it shows it coming up to the Gulf, hitting the loop current there, and then hanging a right-hand turn into Florida. This time of year, it starts to calm down a little bit, at least for the western part of the Gulf, but like you had mentioned earlier, the eastern part, or the west coast of Florida, I should say, definitely has something to keep an eye on.
And
At the moment,
a lot of that has
I mean,
to do with the atmospherics, like you mentioned, not only the atmospherics, but the sea surface temperatures. Once you get a front and kind of work its way over the Gulf, the water temperatures drop considerably because the Gulf waters are shallow. So if you do see a system approaching the northern Gulf Coast, more than likely with the shear involved and the cooler water temperatures, things just don't support a strong system for the northern Gulf Coast as well.
yeah, you'd really have to keep those troughs to the north. I remember it was in the middle of Hurricane Zeta back in 2020. It was the end of October hitting New Orleans, and that was kind of a unique one. Typically, you don't have a major hurricane making landfall in Louisiana late October, but obviously can happen. But yeah, you're right. I mean, look at how warm the Gulf is right now. If we get some of these troughs in, trying to cool that down, that would be some good news.
To our audience joining us on Facebook Live and TikTok Live, we're gonna take any and all questions if you use our hashtag system. Hashtag Hey Justin, Juliana, Dave, JB. And we're gonna take some more adventurous questions here in just a minute. But first, let's get to this one from Kirsten. I don't know if Kirsten's headed to the Bahamas or has a cruise or a vacation plan, but she wants to know specifically how the Bahamas are going to be affected on Tuesday, Juliana.
Yeah, we do get a lot of cruise questions and stuff. That I figured I'd bring up the wave heights forecast. Tuesday, though, that's, I think, far enough out that, Jerry's going to be long gone. Jerry's going to be past Bermuda at that point and way out in the North Atlantic. So Bahamas next Tuesday, looking all right.
All right, good to hear. All right, so here's the thing with if you know anything about me with punching the show, I'm going to take any and all questions for the most part, and I really do want to hone in on this one on TikTok Live from Lil KZ. Hey Juliana, any update about the government shutdown in the United States?
Hey now,
as the news guy in here, I can tell you that there's a lot of conversations happening in Washington, and you can head to WFLA.com if you want to answer that, or if you want answers to this question from a news standpoint. But I want to ask the three of you: has the government shutdown affected anything with your jobs as far as being able to forecast weather? Is there anything shutdown related that's made your jobs more challenging?
Luckily, the critical web pages, because of course the National Weather Service, being a government organization, they have flagged on their website, but I'm looking at it here and it quite literally explicitly says this site will remain updated during the shutdown, and the same goes for the National Hurricane Center's webpage. So that's been my experience so far, at least with those go-to web pages from the Weather Service, Hurricane Center, so on and so forth, that at least they are committed to maintaining those up and to keep them up and running.
Which is very critical for us as broadcast meteorologists. That's how we get the information to disseminate to our viewers and to our folks online as well. So it's important to keep that running.
Mm.
And all the government meteorologists, they're all working, albeit not necessarily getting a paycheck while this time. They'll get furloughed and the check comes later. But it can be kind of tough for some of them, depending on how long this goes on, like it did last time when we had a long over 30 days. It was a little tough, but no, they're still working hard. They got to keep us safe. Tropics, severe weather, flooding, whatever it is, they're working hard.
Well, the question would be far more complex to answer if there was a storm that was impacting the United States, because then you have more federal agencies involved, and then of course it just gets a little bit more, just complex. But right now with these storms curving out to sea, that certainly makes things a little bit more simpler when it comes to weather-related impacts with the government shutdown, which is of course at least a silver lining, if you will. Let's ramp up the crazy a little bit on this show. We have another 6 or 7 minutes. Beefy. Hashtag Hey Justin. A guy who knows more about drones than anybody told me that we can nuke this tropical storm. Is that true?
Wow, you had to give me the crazy question.
Better you than me.
Right?
Let's solo up Justin, considering it was a question for Justin Mosley.
Oh, the answer is no. We'll just put that out there. But
not a good idea.
I mean, we hear so many different things. I've heard one of the crazier ones I've heard is bringing ice down from the North Atlantic to try to cool water temperatures or dropping an iceberg into these systems. It's nice to think about ways that we could mitigate or weaken these systems out in the tropics, but they do have a function. They are made to disperse the heat from the tropics northward, and we do need them, believe it or not. We don't want them to affect land, but this affects the overall global weather patterns, and it's a part of nature. So it's something we have to just prepare for and know that is going to happen.
It's going to be an ongoing, I think, question for a long time because as to what we can or cannot do in the future in terms of mitigating impacts from tropical systems, from extreme weather one way or another, because you have to remember that there is no singular solution. Everything will have a domino effect. So even if hypothetically we could nuke a tropical system, we don't know what that then could cause, down the line.
It's my job to vet these questions before they reach the meteorologist and before they reach the actual show.
Thanks,
but I've
John.
seen some of the craziest stuff. I've seen stuff like, what if there was a vacuum cleaner the size of the moon? Could it suck the hurricane off of the Earth's surface? Or if Superman could use his blowing superpower to blow a hurricane away, is that Guys, our comment section can get absolutely crazy. I do see you. I'm looking at our TikTok Live and our Facebook Live comment section. Let's bring it back to a little bit of reality here for a second for Steph from Colorado. Hey, Juliana, chance of anything hitting Florida before the end of hurricane season?
Of course, technically speaking, the chance is, yes, there is a chance. But as of right now, there's nothing on the map. There's nothing that's posing any threats to Florida for at least the next 7 days. I can give you that. And so we're going to keep our fingers crossed. This season so far, so good. And we're hoping that we kind of keep these trends in place. But of course, as always in every hurricane season, you want to be prepared one way or another, especially when it's quiet. We were talking about this, I think, like 2 weeks ago, and even just throughout the season here on Tracking the Tropics, taking advantage of these quiet moments throughout hurricane season, taking advantage of the beginning of the season when not much is going on, to have, this is not to alarm anybody, of course, but, grab the extra canned goods, grab the extra batteries when you're at the store, have your, ready bag or, supplies at home stocked up at all times, especially when it's quiet and you're not rushing or there's issues with stock at the store, so on and so forth. So we're all ready if and when things happen.
Preparation is the key. Right?
Yep, be prepared.
Yeah. Absolutely. We'll get to one more here on the program, unless I see a last stray comment come in with our hashtag system on Facebook Live or TikTok Live, saying hello to our friend Darlene. Darlene, hope you're well. We know you here at Tracking the Tropics. Hey, Justin. Hey, Juliana. Are we finished talking about our dear summer friend, Saharan dust?
Well, we typically see the Saharan dust earlier in the season. That's one of the reasons why we have such a slow start to hurricane season. The easterly winds are quite strong. You see plume after plume coming across the Atlantic, and that prevents the waters from heating up as much as well. But once you get deeper into the hurricane season, the heart of the season, September 10th, is the technical peak. And beyond, that tends to kind of back off. Water temperatures are at their peak, and we just don't see as much Saharan dust out there later in the hurricane season.
Exactly. And it's funny because I should have known somebody was going to ask about this. I should have had my graphic ready because folks are always asking, and honestly, I get it because I myself too, forecasting today, I was like, well, and then I thought, no, it is that point in the season where it does really get left behind essentially. So this is not going to load in the way that I want it to, but you get the idea, I think, from this, that we see a steep drop basically from August to like mid-September, with that Saharan dust pretty much leaving the picture.
Which is, of course, yes, we like it when we get it in the summer. It certainly helps with hurricane season. It arrives on cue. Before we wrap up this edition of Tracking the Tropics, our featured meteorologist, Dave Nussbaum from WIAT CBS 42, chief meteorologist there. Dave, you have the floor. Your takeaways so far with as we get 50 plus days away from the end of this hurricane season. What are you looking out for, and what do you want to share with our viewers?
Well, we're about to enter a secondary peak, which is typically about October 10th. So today being the 7th. So you can see kind of a little uptick there. Sometimes you see each year. And the season's been a little bit quieter so far. We've had two Cat 5 hurricanes, though, which is still very impressive to get one, let alone two, in any given year. So we're continuing to watch. The water is obviously still very warm. Intertropical convergence zone between Africa and the Caribbean area is still active. And we're still going to watch these waves come in here. I know one person asked, are we done with these waves yet? I don't think quite yet, but typically it's going to take a little longer for these to deform. And as long as that subtropical ridge still sits over the central Atlantic and these troughs keep moving through the United States, that's going to help to keep things away from the coastline. So long-term forecast, at least that, as Juliana mentioned, the next 7 days doesn't show anything coming our way, which is great news. Would love to see that and stay away from the United States and be a fairly quiet year for us here. Obviously, our friends down there will watch the Leeward Islands, Bermuda as well, too, for potential of that. But as long as we keep getting these little troughs, these fronts coming in a little sooner, that'll make our weather a little bit better here. And then eventually we'll be transitioning more from the tropics to more of a severe weather season potentially across the mainland United States, which then I will start to get busy here in Alabama.
We appreciate your time, Dave, today from Alabama, joining us here on Tracking the Tropics across all of our various platforms here as part of Next Star Nation. And of course, also here with our meteorologist close to home, here in Tampa, Florida, at WFLA News Channel 8. We have meteorologist Juliana Mejia and WSNN Chief Meteorologist Justin Mosley. For them, I'm JB Buno, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Of course, we're here live on Tracking the Tropics, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central on Tuesdays during hurricane season. But we also have episodes when storms form, and we go into continuous coverage when we do have a storm that is knocking on our door, which of course we hope does not happen, but we're here for you every step of the way to keep you posted on all things tropics. We appreciate your time. We'll see you next time here from the Stream Center on Tracking the Tropics.